Welcome back to Relatable Wisdom, the podcast where everyday people share the quotes that have shaped their lives, offering you daily wisdom to reflect on your own journey. Today's guest is Therese Nicklas, a financial planner and coach who discovered that true wealth isn't just about numbers in your bank account. After decades of helping high-achieving women navigate major life transitions, she learned that sometimes the most profound insights come from our most vulnerable moments, like when the pandemic stripped away our sense of control and led her to redefine what really matters. Let's hear the quote that helped guide her to this deeper understanding of wealth and fulfillment. Tell us your name and what you do.
My name is Therese Nicklas. I am a wealth coach. I am located in the Boston, Massachusetts area, and I specialize in helping women who are unhappy, who are at a crossroads in their life, and they want to create the next chapter so that it lights them up with joy, purpose, and balance.
Oh, wow. Thank you for accepting my invitation to be on the podcast, Therese.
You're welcome.
What's your favorite quote?
What's my what?
Favorite quote.
Favorite quote. I think my favorite quote would be something from Stephen Covey, and that would be to live, to learn, to leave a legacy.
Let us sink in. To live, to learn, to leave a legacy. Wow.
Yep.
What does that quote mean?
Well, what it means is that it's a person who lives fully. You play full out, and you understand what your values are, what your purpose in life is, and your passion. And you live it in such a way that you leave deep footprints in the sand for your ancestors, or actually your descendants, to follow.
Yeah. And then the other part is to learn. Is that different from learning? Could you explain that to me?
To learn? That would be, somebody who is in a constant mode of learning. They always want to grow. So they don't want to be stagnant. They feel that there's always something new on the horizon that they can learn about. And it's a way to keep yourself engaged and to be fully present.
Okay. And then the last part is to leave a legacy.
Mm-hmm. That's
so
correct.
What is a legacy?
Leaving a legacy. A legacy is your history. So, for example, your podcast is about wisdom. You're sharing wisdom with other people. You're trying to help them relate to it so that they can grow. And when you pass on and you're no longer on this earth and people want to know about you and they find your podcast, that becomes your legacy. This is what you stand for and what is valuable to you.
So someone out there right now is thinking, wait, are you saying that I should start a podcast to leave a legacy?
Well, you don't start the podcast to leave a legacy, but whatever you do in life, you want to know that you want to give it your all and give it your best effort, because there's always somebody that's behind you that's watching. And what do you want them to see? What do you want them to know? Not just about you, but what is it that you want to leave behind?
Okay. What are the things that you do personally, right? To leave, to learn, and to leave a legacy, so we can get some ideas.
I love that question. Thank you so much for asking that. Well, in my journey, I have been in financial services my entire career, which is over 40 years. And I've done all kinds of things within that world. About 25 years ago, a colleague of mine suggested that I look into financial planning. And at the time, financial planning was fairly new, so I didn't even know what it was.
Oh, okay.
So I did some research and I learned that financial planning was a technique that a lot of insurance companies were using to encourage people to buy insurance. And I thought, well, I know people need insurance. That's not necessarily you're doing them any harm.
Yeah.
But I thought the idea of creating a plan that you could plan out your future and do it in a way that is manageable, I thought that was such a valuable service, because so many people go through life with a lot of what ifs, like what if this happens, what if that happens, and they just kind of go along. And then they get to a point in their life, usually when they hit their 50s or 60s, and they look back and they say, what did I do with my life? And I felt like the plan would really help them develop a process so that they could have a very rich life. And I'm not just talking about money. I'm talking about the things money can't buy. So things like your health, being happy, feeling a sense of purpose, and feeling like you're living with passion. You can't put a price on that.
Yeah.
And the financial plan can help a person identify their passions and their purpose and structure their life in such a way that they can live in a more fulfilling manner. And that, to me, is your legacy. And I really believe that that is the value that I bring to people, is to help them navigate that process. Because very often we need a lot of guidance where that comes from, where that comes in.
Now, I'm going to ask a question that's in two folds. And the first one is, what's okay, I think it's in four folds or two folds. I don't know what it is, but you see what I mean when I ask the question. What is the
Okay.
best form of financial advice you have gotten from someone, or you heard, or you hear people say, the best one you received? And what's the best piece of advice in terms of finance? You've been doing this for 40 years, and I know, of course, you did migrate from, you know, financial services to financial planning. What's the best financial advice you've given someone?
I think the best financial advice that I can give to anybody is to live within your means. And
Mm,
before you can live within your means, you need to know what your means are. So what I have seen in my career is this seems to be the biggest challenge for people, is they really don't understand their cash flow. And cash flow is like the foundation of a financial plan. And
mm,
people would come to me, and the first questions they would ask would be about, how should I invest my money? Well, I have no idea. I don't even know how much money you have. I don't know what you have to work with in order to know what to invest in. So they tend to start at it's like, I like to use the analogy of building a house. We all know what a house looks like, right?
yeah,
You have a roof, you've got sides, you've got a foundation. When you come to a financial advisor and you're asking about investments, you're starting at the roof. When I start with a client, I want to know their cash flow. That's their foundation. And from that, we can continue to build the house. And if you don't structure it properly, you end up with a house of cards that just collapses. So the
yeah,
very best advice that I give to people, and I give it consistently, is to live within your means. And before you can do that, you need to know what your means are. And that means what money is coming into your home and what money is leaving. And if you don't understand the money that is leaving, which is a lot of people, they have no idea what they spend their money on, you need to get your arms around that. And once you do, now you can structure things in such a way so that you can have money for savings, you can have money for investments, and you can have money for fun so that you can live that legacy. You can live the lifestyle that you're really dreaming about. For many people, it's a lot easier than they think. They just need to get the discipline and the structure around their financial situation in order to do that.
live within your means. And then in order to live within your means, you have to know what your means are.
Correct.
When,
If you don't know where you're
when,
going, any road is going to get you there.
when you, as much as I feel like I understand this, I always like to have a deeper understanding. What does means? Like, can you use a different word or different things to tell us what
Sure. So
means?
your means are your income, the income that you receive, and the difference between your income and your expenses. That would be your means. So, for example, if you have an income of $5,000 a month, I'm just going to make up numbers, and your expenses are $4,000 a month, then you have a leftover of $1,000 a month, and that becomes the means that you have that you can invest or save. If
Okay.
you're taking in 5,000 and you're spending 6,000, now you're living beyond your means, which means that every month you're probably borrowing money in order to live your lifestyle. Does that make sense? Does that
It
help?
does make sense. Let's take a quick pause. If you're enjoying this conversation and want more thought-provoking ideas straight to your inbox, join the Relatable Wisdom email list. It's free, quick, and filled with bite-sized insights, inspiring quotes, and behind-the-scenes reflections from our guests. Just head to relatablewisdom.com/join. That is relatablewisdom.com/join. Or tap the link in the show notes. And hey, subscribing to the podcast helps more than you think, and it's free. So if you haven't already, hit that follow button wherever you're listening. All right, let's get back to the conversation. It does make sense, but it's just that I'm allowing it to sink in. When with this example you just first going, we had the means, the cash flow, and all that. How do I say this? Like, they are simple words, but yet for a lot of person, yeah, I see. For a lot of people, it's just, oh, they started speaking financial jargons and all. But now that you say, okay, oh, if you're earning 5,000 and this, you take this out of this, and the use is this, and this is your means, and this, so everything makes sense. I'm like, okay, yeah, so that's what you're saying. Oh yeah, it does make
Right.
sense. It's not as difficult
Mhm.
as you make it sound.
It's that simple. People tend to complicate things because they get inside their head and they overthink it. And they not only overthink it, but they really want something different. So they keep trying to justify why they're spending $6,000 when they're only earning $5,000.
Oh,
And you can talk yourself in and out of anything. You could justify it till the cows come home, but the numbers don't lie. And if you are spending more money than you're earning, then you are going to be collecting a lot of debt and you're going to be creating problems that just keep compounding. So knowing how to live within the amount of money that you earn and live within that framework is one of the best things you can ever learn about finances. It's more important than knowing how to pick investments. It's more important than anything is getting that right. That's critical.
thank you for this valuable. I feel like this is not even a piece of advice. This is this is a platter of advice. It's not a piece. It's so big that I can't even call it a piece of advice. Thank you so much,
You're right.
Therese.
You're right. It's the foundation for financial success.
Yeah.
If you get that right, everything else falls into place. Trust me. If you don't get that right, nothing I can ever say or do will fix your situation. So you need
I,
to make the decision that you're going to live within the amount of money that you earn. And if your needs are greater, then you need to find a way to earn more money. It's that
I want us
simple.
to
The numbers don't lie.
I want us to flip things a bit, right? Now, I know this piece of advice is something we can break down and even go deeper and say, okay, how do I earn more money? How do I do this? How do I do that? Right? But I want us to flip things the other way. What's
Okay.
the most terrible financial advice, right? You've heard, or people they're saying out there, it's out there, like it's just there. The worst form of financial advice anyone could ever see.
You want to know the worst piece of advice I've ever seen or heard? And I still
Yeah.
see it to this day.
Okay.
What do you think your biggest, there's two things. I'll start with one and I'm going to let you tell me. What do you think your biggest investment is, your most expensive investment? What would you say it is?
My wait, could you rephrase the question? I feel like I understand you, but
Sure.
I'm not so sure if I.
Okay. When you make a purchase, think about the purchases that you either have made or want to make. What do you think is the most expensive purchase you will make in your lifetime?
Yes. What?
I'll give you a hint. It has 4 walls and a roof.
Oh, a house.
Exactly. That's the one very expensive. What do you think the second one is?
The second one. Okay. If you get shelter, there's food, there's clothing.
Yep. I'm thinking big ticket. Look behind me. There's a lot of books involved. Give you a hint.
Oh, education.
Exactly. Bingo. Not only your education, but if you have children, trying to educate your children. Very expensive ticket items, okay? So here's the worst advice. Ready? Your house is an investment. So if people think of their house as an investment, the home that they live in, they will justify spending more than they can afford. Your home is your shelter. And yes, it may appreciate in value, but you still have to pay for it. And if you extend yourself beyond your means, and unless you know that right around the corner you're getting a promotion or a big raise or your lifestyle will change, chances are you're setting yourself up for disaster if you do not buy within your means.
Yeah.
And that's the worst advice that I have heard. And you generally hear it from a realtor, or you may hear it from a mortgage broker, or different people that have a vested interest, like it benefits them for you to spend more money. So you have to be very, very careful where you're getting advice from. And this is something that I am very conservative when it comes to these things, because I would much rather err on the side of caution than have somebody so overextended that the stress level is just through the roof.
Yeah.
Now, that's with buying your home. The second worst advice is, and I have seen this, parents will go out of their minds trying to educate, they're paying for education for their children. And they will spend money that they don't have. They'll liquidate their retirement accounts. They'll do things that they cannot recover from. And my personal advice to them is your student can apply anywhere that they want. But when it comes right down to it, you need to find a school that's affordable. So you need to be sure that you're applying to schools that are within your means. Again, back to within your means. Because just because you send your child to a high ticket, or in our area, or I'm in the Boston area, so you can't throw a rock and not hit a school. And a very expensive private colleges are all over the place in the Boston area. And you could spend $100,000 a year sending your child to school. That's $400,000 assuming they get through in 4 years. There's no guarantee just because you spent that money that that's going to make them have a better career. They may have just as good of a job at the end of the day going to a state college that costs them $80,000 over 4 years.
Yeah.
So you really have to think about, this is not an investment. This is a huge expense. And if a family has more than one child, what you do for one, you have to do for the other. And unless you have millions of dollars saved, you cannot take all the money that you've worked on for retirement and just make the assumption that you can recoup that, because now you're probably in your 50s and 60s and your earning years are running out. And now you're taking everything you've saved for retirement or for an emergency or for whatever, and you're investing it in your child's education. It's generally not a smart investment at that level. Doesn't mean you don't help your children with college, and it doesn't mean you don't send them to college, but you don't send them to a college that you really cannot afford.
I'm going to say this out there now, and it's going to sound controversial. And why? Most of the times when people make that quote-unquote investment, what they're actually doing is gambling. Now, I have to justify this, because if I don't explain, people are like, what are you saying? Same thing with the house, right? People they don't, what the average man understands as investment is actually gambling. Is a form of glorified gambling. That, if I do this, this is going to grow big, and I'm going to make millions.
Right. Well, it is a form. You're right, because you're taking the risk that by spending that amount of money, your child is going to, for example, with the college situation, that your child is going to benefit exponentially. And this is where good advice comes in, where you need good advice. So let's say, for example, do you have any children?
No.
Okay. So I have 2 sons, and let's say both of them wanted to become teachers. Nothing wrong with that. It's a great profession.
Yeah.
But it's not a high-paying profession. Everybody knows that.
Yes.
So if I sent my child to one of the more elite schools in the area to become a teacher, and they graduate from that school and they start their first year, they're going to start at a first-year salary no matter where they went to school. Now, maybe they will have an easier time getting a job because they graduated from one of the top-tier schools. I don't know. But still, their earning power doesn't change. If they went to a state school, now that state school is like 20 or 25% of the cost of one of the private schools. They might even be able to just pay for it through a summer job, so they have no debt or very little debt. And now they're getting that exact same job. Now, if they do have any debt that they're carrying, it's not crippling them. So this is where advice comes in. You look at the child, you look at their career path, and you look at their opportunity for earning. Does the opportunity for earning change dramatically by paying more for their education? These are the things that the family has to look into, and there are ways of finding that out. If their career path is one that it's not going to make any difference, then don't be foolish spending all that money. It's not going to benefit them.
Yeah.
Unless you have it. If you have it, then terrific.
Yeah, it's
but
within your
most
means.
people don't.
Yeah.
Again, it's within your means. If it is not within your means, don't overextend yourself because it's not going to benefit. Same thing with the house. Now, if you're trying to buy your first home and you're like on the line, let's just say you could really afford a $500,000 home, but there isn't anything available at that level and you have to bump it up. That's a little different, but you will have to make a commitment that this is a struggle. Maybe I have to get 2 jobs for a while.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something else that I have to do here, or you get 2 jobs beforehand and you have a bigger down payment so that your mortgage isn't as bad. I understand that chase of property values going up at such a rapid rate, and it's hard for a young person to keep up with that. I was there. I understand that. But at the same time, there is a limit to how far you can go with that, and you need to understand that.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much, Therese. I'm looking at the time and I'm like, how time flies. Thank you so much for sharing this piece of advice with me and for just clarifying it and helping me make sense of it. My perspective about investment, money, and house and education and all those things that you just talked about has changed. Definitely.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
Yeah. What do you do? I know you mentioned it in the course of the conversation in passing, and from some persons like, oh yeah, she talks about money and investment. Well, I feel like she does this. I feel like she does this. But so the people know what you actually do. What do you do, and where can my listeners learn more about you and what?
Okay, thank you so much for asking that question. I specialize in helping high-achieving women who have spent decades climbing the corporate or success ladder. They're near the top, they look around, they no longer like the view. Their
Okay,
interpretation of success and
changed.
what they're actually experiencing have changed, or it's completely different. So what I do as a wealth coach is I will help them write their next chapter. And that next chapter will be done in a way that it will not only look at their financial well-being, I'll bring in my financial background, but I look at what's in their heart. So with wealth coaching, it's a combination of success coaching, life coaching, and business coaching. And I also
Oh,
bring in money coaching.
it's,
So
oh,
it is. It is, because if you ever went to a life coach they're great. I mean, but they'll help you clarify your desires, but they're not going to touch the financial aspects of what that desired lifestyle is actually going to cost you. And if you go to a business coach, the business coach is going to help you focus on systems and profits and determine if the business idea that you have is viable, but they're not going to have the background to really get into what is in your heart and how to create a business that's going to give you a balanced life. And a financial planner will crunch all the numbers, but they're often going to miss what is really in your heart and what you really want to create for a legacy. So with wealth coaching, it bridges the gap between all of those things so that my clients, women, are empowered to design the life and career that they really love. Using a holistic approach, we can address what's in their heart, their mind, and their bank account.
oh, oh. Where can they learn more about you and connect?
Well, that's great. They can find me on my website, which I've given you the links to that. It's
Yeah, I'll put that in the show notes.
wealthcoachforwomen.com. And I also have my Linktree link there so that they can get me on social media and anywhere they want to find me. For any of y'all listeners, I do have a special gift, and they can
Okay.
get that gift at wealthcoachforwomen.com/pod, P-O-D. And there's a wealth building toolkit at that link. And if they wanted to, they can also sign up for a 30-minute consultation that is absolutely free. And during that call, what we'll do is we'll address their questions, their desires, and they'll at least walk away with a roadmap to help them get from where they are to where they want to be. And I'll also explain in more detail how I help people, and they can make a decision if they'd like to take the next step and work with me.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. I'll be sure to put all the links mentioned in the show notes and in the description so people can just click on the link and go straight to your website. Thank you so much, Therese. It's been
Thank
an
you.
absolute delight chatting with
Thank you.
you. You've been listening to Relatable Wisdom, and I've been your host, Wisdom Okonkwo. You've been listening to the podcast where every story, quote, and insight helps you see life a little differently. If you enjoyed today's episode, follow the show on your favorite podcast app and share it with someone who loved the conversation. For more inspiring voices and timeless wisdom, visit relatablewisdom.com. Until next time, keep living, learning, and collecting wisdom that matters most to you.